Very important.
All right. Call to order the SCIDA County Industrial Development Agency board meeting. First item on the agenda is to review and accept the July meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. All approved?
Right.
All opposed? Motion carried. Second item is committee meetings. Do we have
Yes.
anything on committee meetings?
We do not have any committee reports. No. As was reported just a few weeks ago, the audit has commenced for the IDA.
New business. UTEP recommendation. By.
So the UTEP is the Uniform Tax Exempt Policy. This is, the primary policy for inducing projects in Schoharie County and across the state. Ben and I worked on the UTEP. We talked about this a few weeks ago. We reviewed 5 or 6 different IDA, other industrial development agencies. We also shared it with Joe Scott from Hodgson Russ, the Schoharie County IDA Council. He did share his comments just this morning, and they were all consistent and reiterated some of our recommendations, which I can go through those with you if we'd like. I might be able to put these up on that screen, but if you have the UTEP in front of you, which Joe does great, and as does Chet, the first comment from Joe Scott is based on 30-day notice, and he agrees that with all of these changes, the only requirement is to provide 30-day notice of the taxing jurisdictions that you intend to make these policy changes. Again, the policy changes are intended to induce more projects and update to the current law. So 30-day notice is required by law. Joe Scott suggests that you consider a public hearing. The taxing jurisdictions also have an opportunity to respond and to present to the IDA board, which is in your policy. We're not suggesting any changes. The next item that Joe commented on was purpose and authority.
Sorry, Robin.
Purpose in section 1, purpose and authority. He said the reference to, we're suggesting we reduce from $100,000 in the current policy to $50,000 so that more projects feel compelled to come forward and don't automatically select out. Joe Scott said the reference to $100,000 is statutory and not intended to limit agency benefits to larger projects. Revising the number to $50,000 is permitted, but should modify language referencing the New York State law. So we can do it. We just need to add that we're lowering it below the New York State threshold. Joe's next comment, also section 1, purpose and authority, second bullet. He's stating that we should delete the clause in A, which reads, operated by a not-for-profit corporation. That was prior versions of the New York State Act, and it's old language. So we would remove the not-for-profit from that.
Where is that?
I'm sorry.
That's the second circle bullet under section 1. Retail businesses.
Right, okay, good. Yes.
Section 5, mortgage recording tax exemption. B. He agreed that the references in A and B refers to agency debt, and we should broaden to include bank debt on straight lease projects. So he's agreeing with this concept that it's not limited to IDA debt, that we can provide incentive to others that are, we can provide the mortgage recording tax exemption no matter how you put together your financing. Does that make sense?
No,
It currently reads that this IDA would only allow mortgage recording tax exemption if this IDA provided the financing.
got it.
What we'd like to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
is say, no matter where you get your financing, we
Financing,
can
right,
do
got
that. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad you're asking. Means we're paying attention, right?
I have one question, sorry to go all the way back.
Yeah,
The $50,000 reduction,
yes.
does the $50,000 reduction include the retail projects in the second bullet point, circular bullet point down, where we indicated distressed areas were eligible for benefit regardless of the project type, right? So if somebody's doing a TI project in an existing building and it's 2,600 square feet and they're gonna fit it up and it costs them
EI's tenant
tenant
improvement.
improvement, sorry, and they're gonna fit it up and it's gonna cost them $100,000 to do that, they're not gonna be eligible for benefits in that distressed area because it's unlikely that the benefit would exceed $50,000. So do those distressed retail projects also fall under the $50,000 guideline?
According to this, I think it would, right?
Yeah.
It's the minimum.
So I'm wondering if we're exempting them from the benefit because of the threshold.
I don't think so. Do
I
you?
don't read it that way.
I don't, yeah. So say it again.
So if they came in and do a project, so let's
The
say.
project's $100,000.
Say business wants to go to an existing building, right, and it's a retail location in the stressed area. And they need to do some fit up in order to open their building, and it's gonna cost them $100,000 to do the fit up.
Mhm.
Sales tax on $100,000 is $8,000. They at best will have minimal mortgage debt. So how do they make the $50,000 threshold?
So it's contrary to the notion that we want to separate these incentives as well. So if a retail project wants to come in and they really are only looking for the sales tax benefit, that $8,000, and they don't want to pay, the significant legal fees, you're saying at $8,000 to get to that sales tax benefit, they can't because of this threshold.
Correct.
So you want this 50,000 threshold to be less, or maybe we add language or at the discretion of the SCIDA board.
I like that.
We could do that.
Okay.
I like that
Or-
better than making it less.
Yeah, because I think it's really special situations.
Yeah,
So maybe, or do the notes down below and start now we jump ahead, the financial assistance fee schedule. The sales tax exemption and mortgage tax exemption indicate eligible business with capital investments of $50,000 or greater. So does that qualify the business separately from the $50,000 incentive?
I think you say yes to that, but I think here you want it to read the other language.
Unless
at this-
otherwise
Yes,
indicated in the financial assistance fee schedule
unless otherwise eligible.
under the financial assistance fee schedule. Because then the $50,000 investment would cover.
Yeah. Got it. I'm just writing all the words. Well, it's recording too. So what you're proposing through all of that is section 1, purpose and authority, the first dash. We're going to add language to this change that reads, unless otherwise eligible under the financial assistance fee schedule at the discretion of the SCIDA board.
that's what, at the discretion, right? I thought that was noted somewhere else in here.
Yeah, I think it's important to put it wherever we are. Sometimes people just read the one sentence and then.
Yeah.
So I think are we comfortable with that change?
Or you can apply that to the mortgage, tax exemption too, yes. You could apply it to all of them.
Right, I think that's why Ben suggested the financial assistance fee schedule, because that
Because
kind
the
of
notes-
calls out those differences.
The notes in there indicate the eligibilities.
Yeah. Are we comfortable moving forward?
Yes.
Okay, so the last item we just spoke to before we scrolled back, we were in section 5, mortgage recording tax exemption B. Our attorney, Joe Scott, agrees that we should expand this to include all debt, which is the intent of broadening that language. Joe Scott's next comment, and this is section 8, procedures for deviation. So what we're proposing is that we're only requiring consent, we're only requiring notice, not consent, which is a change of your policy. It's standard to only, in all of the other IDA UTEPs, it was simply providing notice to the taxing jurisdictions. There is a response process that's outlined in your policy where they're able to respond in writing, they're able to present to your board, being the taxing jurisdictions, why and their reasoning if they disagree with one of the proposals that you're like with your IDA schedule and your approval of a project. Joe's comment is the requirement for consent is potentially limiting to the agency. He's reiterating, are you sure you want to continue or delete with that requirement? We're proposing that you do not continue with that requirement.
As I understand this. If we grant a pilot, whatever the case is, we inform the taxing jurisdiction. And they can either agree with this or not agree with this. Anyway, right?
The current policy reads that you're required to get consent, and you have received consent on those deviations in the past. Ron has followed the policy to the T. So he has not only notified, he's ensured that there's consent, and that is how your policy currently reads. What we're proposing is that's not how most IDA policies read. And Joe Scott, your IDA attorney, is saying that's limiting. So this is a shift in your policy.
So what we would, if adopt, we would simply inform them, the taxing jurisdictions, of our action. They have the right to then reply and present.
Yes,
And we could, as a result of that process, decide to change our policy. But we're
decide to
not
change your
required to.
deviation of your project proposal of benefits.
Right.
So that's the deviation of your proposal, the incentive package that you're providing. Yes,
But we're required to listen to them, but not required to change it based upon their objection.
correct. That's what we're proposing your policy shift is.
Going forward, we probably won't change what we're doing. It's a courtesy and we need them on our side, the jurisdictions, if we want this to fly. So we would always say, and many times they're the champions, and SSI, they were the champions, the jurisdictions were the champions who wanted this and not us. So I don't think,
Right.
I agree with the change.
It always
Certainly
works
agree
that
with
way.
change.
And what the process for the approval of your policy shift is to notify them that you're anticipating these changes. And Joe Scott suggested you could even go so far as have a public hearing. I think the public hearing is inviting the community to react. By notification of the taxing jurisdiction, you're already opening that dialogue. So
Okay.
to face different audiences, I think. So is there a consensus for this change? Okay,
Yes.
proposal. Okay, the next section, the new section 9, recapture. As we discussed last month briefly, Joe has the recapture, we're familiar with that notion. There was an assumption it was in an agreement. There is an agreement. So Joe Scott has no objection to adding this new section 9 recapture. The agency does enter into a uniform agency project agreement with each project application, that the terms of that particular agreement provide the agency with the flexibility of this recapture as it's defined here. So what this changes is putting it in your policy instead of just simply in the agreement.
Okay.
Then there was another major error, an item that I left out of the fee schedule. I neglected to put the $500 in the administrative fee. So what we're proposing is in line with what other IDAs do, and I believe this IDA is bantied about for a few years. There's an application fee. Then there's the origination fee, which is the percent per project. What we're proposing is that origination fee is slightly increased, and this is a charge to the project sponsor at closing. We're also proposing that there's some flexibility with that 0.25% increase, where we're able to direct those dollars into a restricted fund that may benefit the host community or other economic development community-wide. That would give your board the authority to direct those dollars as a policy practice.
Is that standard at 0.25%? Is that pretty much?
1.25% is pretty standard in origination fees.
Okay. What?
You all do the community benefit?
No, that's something new that we're proposing.
No, that's good.
Yeah, with all of the different projects, we thought that this was a great idea to give you some more flexibility in directing some dollars into those community benefits. So as the IDA has a greater presence in economic development in Schoharie County, you also are allocating resources to really mobilize the community benefits.
And of course, that conforms with the Schoharie Board of Supervisors desire to have the IDA more involved.
Yes.
In fact, it gives it a little bit more oomph.
Yeah, and I think as a project sponsor, when you are paying these 1.25% fees, I think it's feel good for them that this money isn't just being tucked into the IDA, it's being set aside to help with community benefits, whether it's impacts of their project or enables some enhancements otherwise.
Any example of the use for this money?
Sure, the way we've articulated it and in this is through making funds available for planning, if it's updating comprehensive plans, or if it's putting together a creek trail plan as a community amenity. We've talked about it as investment in projects that are already started. So in Schoharie, for example, the creek trail has, I think, $750,000. It needs a little more because the construction costs have changed. So you'd be able to direct some dollars to that sort of thing. Or, maybe there's a not-for-profit and
Okay.
arts environment where you want to help in the arts establishment and its programming or its building redevelopment. That's a community that's serving the community, could be for a senior center. And then last is to have those funds set aside to use. The concept is for matching other funds, be it or to leverage other funds. So potentially could be used to hire a grant writer to help supplement an incentive package that for a project that you think is a really great project. So maybe there are some funds available to help that next step to plug another hole in a project fund. Does that make sense? In
Nice
New
probably
York,
to have some examples here going forward, so
yeah, New York,
future boards will understand.
what that means. And community benefits agreements have been used for decades. In Los Angeles, New York City, big cities, a lot of it was directed towards affordable housing, frankly, where the developers would come in and they'd require some funding and some certain parameters around community housing was a real practice. In New York State, post-community benefits agreements have been most active around solar developments, where it's the same concept, where you're setting aside dollars to use for the good of the public in those agreements. What this is saying the IDA already is going to be negotiating with these folks. Let's carve off a piece. You're comfortable with restricting these dollars for community benefit. Helps the project sponsor and helps the IDA.
So if somebody came up with a community benefit, let's say it's childcare.
Sure, yeah.
And this money could be used. This 1.25%, the large project could be used to help fund this.
What we're proposing is only 0.25 of the 1.25 would be directed into your board restricted community benefits fund.
Right,
So
I'm sorry.
of that fund, I think this board could decide how it wants to spend it in its childcare as it relates to work.
For a large, say a large project,
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
yeah, not for profit community benefit.
Well, certainly, unless it's a really, really gigantic project.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a fairly small amount of money, but it could then be used, as you suggested. If applications have to be prepared to hire a person who's capable of doing that,
Mhm.
so that it doesn't fall upon the municipality to come up with
Right.
funds.
Right, well, even in the childcare example, you could use it to, there's another $500 million pot for childcare today. You could use it for grant writing to access
For that.
childcare funding, exactly.
Yeah.
For a piece of it instead of like the building construction or something else.
Good.
Yeah.
Like that.
And it's really, yeah, I think this is a piece of this policy that really separates the Schoharie County IDA from others. Did you want to add
Agreed.
anything
Yeah, I
to it?
mean, the ability to leverage the dollars is gonna be huge, right? If we need to put up, for instance, the town needs to put up $50,000 for the Restore New York match, or the New York Forward match, how do we use that? You know, could we earmark some money to do that down the road for another project? The big need out of this way for development is infrastructure, sewer and water infrastructure. You know, can we leverage the dollars in grant writing to find some money for those types of things for projects in the area? We heard concerns about certain projects that water is a big issue for homeowners who live up the hill from the project. Or do we have the ability to run sewer and water, you know, to some of these homes, or at least give them opportunities to tap into the access, right? So there's.
Because a lot of times it's the coming up with the initial fairly small amount of money.
Right.
To write the application.
Right.
We have community partners who are doing a lot for economic development. Do we incentivize them somehow to continue to do these things? We talked about it and it didn't make it into this policy, but I think we have the discretion to do things like that in the future if we wanted to. So.
Good.
Very good. So so we talked about application fee, which you currently have, origination fee, which you currently have. We're renaming it to origination fee. We're proposing this community benefit fund as a board restricted allocation of that origination fee. Administration fees are common practice. It's new to the Schoharie County IDA. What's being proposed is consistent with the Genesee County IDA. Projects that are $5 million or less in capital investment would have a $500 a year administration fee. Projects that are $5 million or more are $1,000 a year annual administration fee. And this, and wish Ron were here, this is him working with those beneficiaries to do their annual reports, to do the pilot, to send out the invoices for the pilot, coordinating with the county, those sorts of activities. And this is pretty common across the state to have these annual administration fees.
The $500 should be.
It needs to be added.
And
Yes,
Right.
that was one of the misses. And then again, let's see, did just Scott have a comment? That was his comment. He's like, I don't follow. And I said that $500 is missing. So it would read $500 there. And then the way this fee schedule lays out, the financial assistance fee schedule, this is also something new to the Schoharie County IDA to lay it out so clearly. It really illustrates that you do not have to come to the IDA as a huge project. There are opportunities for you, as Ben said, if you're making a capital investment of $50,000, not anticipated financial assistance of investment of $50,000. Flips it. If your capital investment at the start of the project is $50,000 or greater, and you meet other IDA criteria, you could ask the IDA simply for a sales tax benefit. The application fee is less. The origination fee remains the same. It allows you to carve off some dollars for community benefit. And legal fees are similar, but should be dramatically reduced because it's a small component of the benefit package. Same would be true for the mortgage tax exemption. The earlier shift that we've made in the mortgage tax exemption is that you no longer have to receive IDA financing. No matter what your financing is, if you meet other policy requirements of the IDA, meaning capital investment, job creation, and or if it's a retail project in the distress zone, you have access to these benefits as a project sponsor. And what this is illustrating is that if you just want a mortgage recording tax, which is 1.25% today, Ben, in Schoharie County? 1.25% in Schoharie County today. You want to save that. You have an opportunity to come to the Schoharie County IDA to get that benefit alone. And for that, there is an application fee. There is an origination fee that would be a portion of that financing. And then the legal fees, of course. The next,
Should
did
there
you have
be
anything to add in those three benefits? Sorry.
Should there be an administrative fee for these? Still gonna take work on the part of somebody to get it done.
Not annually. The origination fee should cover that for the initial start.
Okay,
There's likely not as much ongoing data collection, right?
Right.
It's just the sales tax and mortgage tax as opposed to the,
Real property,
right,
which has that schedule that you're tracking for 10, 15 years.
job creation, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Comes along with it. The only, if I sit in a developer seat and try to look at the schedule, the only outlying question, particularly when you're talking about things that just meet the $50,000 threshold. Really the legal fee and. Not having a good grasp of how much that is so that you can go back and say, okay, well. I know what it's gonna cost me to apply, and I know what my savings is going to be if I do so, without having that legal fee, which sometimes can be. Significant.
Yeah, so I believe what some of our peers have done is worked with their attorney and said needs to be $1,000 cap, not to exceed $1,000 or $1,500. So that way we can articulate that, maybe not put it on the schedule, but have that agreement with the IDA attorney.
I think that would be good, particularly
Yes.
for some of the smaller, just mortgage tax or sales tax exemption where there's not a lot of.
Yeah.
We should be able to template the agreements and the legal
Yes.
docs and things and
Yes,
keep it pretty
simple.
simple.
I will check with Hodgson Russ on that.
Okay.
I think it's a great point. Moving into the next section, bond financing incentives. This is something the IDA is able to do. I don't know that you've done a lot of this think the market's changed, so it makes it more attractive right now. Bond, you're able to float bonds, taxable or tax exempt. Same here. Application fee, origination fee with the board ability to redirect a quarter of that to community benefit fund, and then legal fees, as Ben has just articulated. We're calling out the distinction again on this notion that sometimes project sponsors change. They sell the property or they want to refinance, or something happens in that project that may disrupt. And I think Middleburg Meadows actually, I think, is an example of that currently for you. Transfer or assignment of the pilot, that's not technically what's happening there, but the refinancing is in the bond. So in the transfer assignment, what we're suggesting is, yes, you help these projects and you're open to that transfer and assignment, but you want to have some more, I guess, review of that. So you would have to approve that transfer and assignment to the new entity. And for that purpose, there would be there's again, administrative. So there is application fee. Should this be 0.4% as well, Ben? Transfer assignment, or was that 0.2?
I think that was 0.2.
I think it was 0.2. Okay, so I think this area is correct.
If the company sells or assigns the project building. Because then right after that, we say this, the IDA must approve the transfer assignment. So we should say if the company sells or assigns.
Right, did it read that on the left side there?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, it actually says if the company sells the project.
Yeah, if it sells or assigns, you have to sell it if you want to, you know.
so you want,
Yeah,
so you want assignment, sells
If the
slash
company
assignment,
sells or assigns.
or assigns.
Sells slash assigns. as long as
Okay.
it's assigned.
Yeah, it's the very end of the.
Yeah, it says it at the end, but I wanted
Transfer
to
assignment.
clarify that.
Absolutely.
Okay, yes, I will add that sells or assigns on the fee schedule. Okay. And then we have the section that defines the community benefit fund. At the sole discretion of this board, there's a fee not to exceed 0.25% of the origination fee that you can allocate for the purpose of public benefit reinvestment. And for such project initiated funds may be directed to enhance community planning, community amenities, and or match other capital sources to initiate or implement a public benefit project. And then the last piece we put in here is the grants consulting, that if you're looking at a large project, there's an opportunity for the IDA to participate in that project to help navigate all of the resources that are available. In some cases, like you've done in the past, you could also work with the county. This is where Sarah worked with the county, where the IDA was the subrecipient of the county's community development block grant, and you administered that program on behalf of the county. This block, I believe, reads that you're open to doing that moving forward with any entities.
This really states what we from time to time do.
Yes. Just puts it in writing so people understand more about what you do. And then, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah, are you, I'm just gonna move off the fee schedule. So did you have a fee schedule?
Well, is there a little bit of a disconnect here? Because we say fee not to exceed 0.25% of the origination fee. But up top, it says 0.25% of the 0.25%. So 0.25% of 0.25 is actually a little higher.
You're correct.
Yes. So we need to
Good catch, GX.
The total project element up to 0.25% may be directed to community fund.
0.25% of the 1.25%.
In the bottom description, right? This needs to be corrected.
Yeah, good catch. So we made the big bucks.
Hey,
Community benefit. Okay, got it. So then what we're proposing is that you do publish these February 2023 to give you a sense of what might be eligible. These maps should be updated annually. They certainly should be checked again if you have a project coming forward, just to be sure they're eligible by the New York State law. But it really just illustrates the areas that should think it might turn a light bulb on for us and them.
And can you help us understand what's the difference between the dark green and the light green?
So the law allows, so there, one is a census block, one is a census track.
So we're really focused
So
on the dark green area. For
The
this
law
specific-
allows adjacent.
Okay, so it's.
So the
light.
dark is the area that's eligible and the light green is also eligible because it's contiguous too.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So anything in the light green is eligible.
Yes. Because it's contiguous, not because it's by right.
I don't want
Well, I
to
guess
pick,
it
but if we can add some sort of legend around that.
Yeah.
That would be. I always look at this map and I'll try to figure out what the difference is.
So it's all eligible, yes.
Okay,
just in case you wondered. It would be 0.3135%.
A third of it, basically.
See a map over there.
Is that the right amount?
Yeah.
What you guys want to do?
Well,
25 basis points of the 125 basis points, right? Yes, that's, I'm comfortable with that. I think that's
yeah,
good.
I think it's just as long as it's clear, so,
The IDA still maintains its 1%.
right.
Right.
The ability to disperse some additional growth.
Okay,
You can,
And saying basis points.
it could be cited in terms of parentheses for anybody that wants to know how much.
Yeah.
0.3131. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Ah,
0.3135.
Oh, 35.
We're not doing that though.
No,
We're just gonna do 25 basis,
Correct.
rather than this 25 of the one.
Of 125. Okay. Got it. Okay, so. If you're comfortable with those, I mean, a couple of cleanup items, I can circulate that back to the board and. With your authority, then the next step is to notify all the taxing jurisdictions of the proposed policy changes.
Good, and you would do that by sending out a copy.
We'll do a
full
letter and a copy. Mhm.
Would we redline portions of it? Or?
We can do that, yes. Yes, that's the best way to do it, probably, red line.
Joe Scott.
I don't
Just
kn-
be a public hearing on that.
Yeah,
After, yeah, I wouldn't recommend a public hearing until after, yeah, it's your call.
public hearing could be Friday night and the Labor Day weekend.
Well, why would we need a public hearing? The jurisdictions are okay with it.
Yeah.
Why even bring it up?
I guess that was my thought. We went out to each of them and they all said, okay,
Yeah, so done,
you know, they may want some clarification.
unless they want a public hearing, for some reason, I don't see why they.
Maybe we put that in the letter. Are you interested in a public hearing? I don't know.
I'm not super concerned if we hold a public hearing and let anyone with an opinion come. Voice it. I don't know how many folks are gonna show up, but
Not very many, probably.
it may be worth doing it just to be transparent.
I would not.
So do you want to schedule the public hearing for your next board meeting?
No, that may be too soon.
Okay,
We've got a lot to,
Okay.
get done.
well, let's get the letters out, get
Letters
to
Yes.
see, the taxing jurisdictions are your partner in this process, so let's see where they're at.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we'll make some changes. I'll try to find the original policy so we can redline it. And see what we can do from there. Like, I have the original policy, it's just not in a format to redline, so just have to figure out how to get it into
Sounds
that
good.
format. Okay, all right.
So we,
Good work.
do we need a motion on this or just, it's still, not completely done?
It's your decision. If you'd like to move today with the minor changes and authorize Ron and I to send it out to the taxing jurisdictions, you're welcome to do that.
So let's do that.
I would do that, sure, no reason not to.
All right, so the motion is to authorize the IDA to send letters to all taxing jurisdictions incorporating the new UTEP policies.
Proposed UTEP
Proposed UTEP.
updates. Updated policy.
Right.
Okay.
I'll second that.
GT,
You may want to add some more of the examples for the community benefit. Grant writing,
Right.
other types of things,
Good one,
just,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
you know,
or to leverage other projects.
yeah, we can add it in the fee schedule, but certainly that should be in the cover letter
Right.
to highlight that.
So there are a couple, yeah.
Yeah,
You could probably come up with some the childcare, as you suggested, or affordable housing or whatever it might
okay,
be.
trails,
Or Queen Art Hall.
grant writing.
Wasn't me that said that.
It's on record, it's
That's a
being
record.
recorded, that's correct.
All right, so-
Okay, so we have a motion to authorize the IDA staff to notify all taxing jurisdictions of the proposed uniform tax exempt policy updates.
Right.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, next on our agenda is, I think I can. See if I can share this screen.
Executive session.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
So,
I'll
All in
second.
favor?
Well, hold on a second, I'm gonna stop the recording and stop the camera. So at 11:01. Joe made a motion to enter executive session. Peter seconded. All in
All
favor?
in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I can shut this.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording. And I'm going to